Rocky Mountain National Park, Colorado. Elevation over 9,000 feet. The nearest city is more than 50 miles away. In 2017, a U.S. Geological Survey scientist sets out collection jars across this pristine wilderness, expecting to measure nothing more than rainfall chemistry, nitrogen, acidity, the usual markers of atmospheric pollution. Instead, when the samples come back from the lab, something impossible stares back through the microscope. Plastic. Not fragments of bottles or bags, but thin colored fibers. The unmistakable signature of synthetic clothing. It is raining plastic in one of the most remote, most protected landscapes in America. Gregory Weatherby, a research chemist with over 2 decades studying atmospheric deposition, is stunned enough to title his own report with a question mark. It's raining plastic. He never expected to find synthetic fibers falling from the sky, over a mountain range, far from any factory, any highway, any city. But there they are. An estimated 4% of the particles collected were microplastics, more than 90% of them fibers matching the composition of polyester and nylon. If plastic can fall as rain over the Rocky Mountains, then there is no remote enough place, no wilderness pure enough to escape it. And the source isn't an industrial accident. It isn't a chemical plant. It's something far more intimate, something sitting in almost every home on Earth right now, a closet full of clothes. This is the story of how the fashion industry, worth over $1.7 trillion, producing more than 100 billion garments a year, quietly became one of the most destructive forces on the planet. And to understand how it got this bad, you have to go back to the moment speed became more important than substance. The acceleration, London and Hong Kong, late 1990s. In the final years of the 20th century, retail executives across Europe and Asia stare down a problem. Consumers are growing bored faster than factories can keep up. The traditional fashion calendar, 4 collections a year, spring, summer, autumn, winter, suddenly feels ancient. A new model emerges, one built not on craftsmanship or scarcity, but on speed. Brands like Zara pioneer a system where a garment can move from sketch to store shelf in under 3 weeks. H&M follows, then Forever 21, then a wave of others, each competing to shrink the gap between idea and impulse purchase. By the year 2000, global clothing production has already doubled compared to a decade earlier. To manufacture at this speed and this price, factories across Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodia, and China turn overwhelmingly to one material: synthetic fiber. Cheap to produce, easy to dye in any color imaginable, durable enough to survive shipping in bulk. That material is polyester, a fabric spun not from cotton fields or sheep's wool, but from crude oil. By 2020, polyester makes up more than 60% of all clothing manufactured worldwide. 60% of everything humans wear now begins its life as petroleum. On paper, this looks like a triumph. Cheaper clothes, faster trends, more choice than any generation in history. But buried inside that convenience is a mechanism nobody accounted for. Every time that polyester fabric is washed, it doesn't just get clean. It falls apart, invisibly, microscopically, and endlessly. The hidden mechanism. A laundry room, anywhere, present day. Picture an ordinary washing machine, mid-cycle, water churning through a load of leggings, a fleece pullover, a cheap polyester t-shirt. To the human eye, nothing unusual is happening. But under a microscope, the picture is violent. Each fiber, thinner than a human hair, is being twisted, stretched, and torn against thousands of others. And with every wash, a portion of that fabric doesn't just wear down, it detaches completely. Shedding is what scientists call microfibers, a category of microplastic under 5
millimeters long. A single load of synthetic laundry can release somewhere between 700,000 and 6 million of these fibers into the wastewater. Now multiply that by an estimated 2 billion washing machines running worldwide, multiple loads a week, every year. The global total? Roughly 500,000 tons of plastic microfibers entering water systems annually. The rough equivalent of 50 billion plastic bottles, except these never even make it into a recycling bin. They are simply gone, dispersed, invisible. Dr. Sherry Mason, a chemist who has spent more than a decade researching freshwater plastic contamination, offers a blunt summary. We are, in a very real sense, wearing an oil spill. Her research teams have found synthetic fibers in the Great Lakes, in Arctic sea ice thousands of miles from the nearest city, and now, thanks to researchers like Weatherby, falling from the open sky over protected mountain wilderness. Wastewater treatment plants, most of them designed decades before this problem was even understood, were never built to filter particles this small. Even the best-performing plants let through millions of fibers a day, and once released, these fibers don't decompose the way organic material does. Plastic doesn't rot, it fragments into smaller and smaller pieces and persists for decades, some estimates say for centuries. So the fibers escape the laundry room, they escape the treatment plant. But where do they actually end up? Into the deep, the Pacific Ocean floor, 2019, 2,000 meters below the surface of the Pacific, past the point where sunlight can reach. Researchers from the University of Manchester lower sampling equipment into total darkness. They expect sediment. What they find instead, published in 2019, is staggering. Up to 1.9 million microplastic particles per square meter of seafloor, the highest concentration ever recorded on Earth, in a place no human being has ever physically stood. Marine biologist Dr. Eric Zettler, who has spent years tracing how plastic moves through ocean ecosystems, explains what happens next. Plankton mistake microfibers for food and consume them. Small fish eat the plankton. Larger predators eat the small fish. At every step upward through the food chain, the concentration of plastic climbs, a process called bioaccumulation. By the time it reaches a plate of salmon or a bowl of shrimp, the numbers are no longer trivial. A 2021 study estimates the average person consumes between 39,000 and 52,000 microplastic particles every year through food and water alone. And when airborne particles are factored in, some estimates climb past 74,000. It isn't only seafood. Tests on sea salt from 21 countries in a 2018 study found microplastic contamination in nearly 90% of samples. Bottled water, beer, even honey. The fibers are turning up almost everywhere humans eat and drink. And textiles, especially cheap polyester clothing, are one of the largest identifiable sources. For years, the assumption was that this remained fundamentally an ocean problem. Tragic, but distant. That assumption is about to be shattered completely. The body becomes the evidence. Vienna, October 2018. At the Medical University of Vienna, gastroenterologist Dr. Philipp Schwabel, leading a small pilot study, asks 8 volunteers from across Europe and Asia, people with ordinary diets, no unusual exposure, to provide stool samples for analysis. None of the participants worked near plastic production. None lived near industrial sites. The results come back, and every single one of the 8 tests positive for microplastics, an average of 20 particles per 10 grams of sample. This is the first study of its kind, Schwabel tells the press at the time, and it confirms what many suspected. Plastic ultimately reaches the human gut. That finding alone would have been alarming, but it is only the beginning. Within 4 years, follow-up research detects microplastics in human.
Some fashion brands, under mounting public pressure, pledge to shift toward recycled or biodegradable fibers. But researchers are quick to complicate the narrative. Recycled polyester still sheds microplastics during washing. It isn't a solution. At best, it's a slower version of the same problem. And here's the pivot that should unsettle anyone watching this closely. Even if every washing machine on the planet were retrofitted with a filter tomorrow, it would do nothing to undo the microplastics already buried in ocean sediment, already falling in mountain rainfall, already lodged inside human tissue. This crisis has a built-in delay. The damage caused today will keep surfacing for decades, in lakes not yet tested, in newborns not yet conceived, in ecosystems scientists haven't even begun to study. Back in Rocky Mountain National Park, researchers now return every season to collect new samples, tracking whether concentrations are climbing or, against the odds, beginning to fall. So far, the data points in only one direction. Because somewhere, right now, in a home that looks nothing like a factory or a chemical plant, A washing machine is running. A cycle is spinning. And with each rotation, a little more of the modern world dissolves into fibers too small to see. Fibers built to outlast every person watching this video, drifting through rivers, oceans, mountain air, and human bloodstreams for generations to come. The clothes are only where this story starts. What happens next? To the water, to the food chain, to the next generation growing up inside all of this, is still being written. And the next chapter may be closer than anyone is ready to admit.